Hey guys, Hailey Lain aka Key Black here with another episode of Off the Cuff, and I'm gonna kind of continue talking about RoboCop. I made myself think with the last one about what would I want out of a RoboCop 2. I mentioned in the previous one that I did watch RoboCop 2. I didn't really go in with many expectations, but I was pretty underwhelmed by it. There were a couple of cool ideas in it, I think, but a lot of it was just, let's just attack that plot thread, and then that plot thread, and then that plot thread, and leave them all off on cliffhangers, and just come up with an ending that has a bunch of explosions. I think my biggest quibble with it, other than the fact that it undoes a lot of the plot of RoboCop 1, is that during some of the scenes that could have been really, really cool, it decided to go for jokes instead, like when RoboCop is on the front of that van trying to stop the bad guys, and he looks off to the side and he gets beamed in the face, clong, like cartoony style, and knocked off the car. And then these bikers jump him. It's like, no. It's fine for him to get hit off the car, but you film it differently. You don't do it like a Looney Tunes gag. And then the biker should skid to a stop like, oh shit! And then he gets up and says to one of them something like, your service to the law is appreciated. And he like commandeers the hog and rides after the villain on it. And then like towards the end of the movie, as RoboCop and RoboCop 2 are falling down from this huge tower, they play a slide whistle sound effect. Like, if I want a sequel to RoboCop, I don't want it to be parodying RoboCop, I want more of the same. I want the same shocking amount of sincerity that went into the original story. And when I say more of the same, I don't just mean the first movie again, because you might as well just rewatch the first movie if you're gonna do that. But I would want kind of a logical continuation of the plot. Like, what's next for RoboCop technology? I mean, you could do a whole new story with a whole new cast of characters if you wanted to. Or you could follow up Terminator 2 style, Deus Ex style, and address the fact that, hey, eventually RoboCop's tech is going to be pretty outdated. How is he going to keep up in the ever-changing modern day of technology? Like, RoboCop 2 kinda did that, but it was more focused on the fact that RoboCop 2 was a total drug addict than it was about the advanced technology. If you want a good example of it, look at Terminator 2. You've got the outdated tech on the T-800 facing down this extremely advanced new robot for the new one, but it's not the level of technology that saves the day, you know? The fact that RoboCop is about a guy who's torn between humanity and, robotics, that's a perfect ground to explore that kind of storyline. And, personally, I wouldn't mind seeing some development of the relationship between Murphy and Officer Lewis, but I also wouldn't mind some damsel in distress action, but that's just me. All of this is just me. I don't claim to be a film critic or anything like that. It's just, I can't help but think it's a shame when a really good, beloved movie gets a really terrible sequel. I totally get it, you want to capitalize on the success of the previous movie or the previous TV show or whatever, but it almost always kills the franchise, especially if you give it to a different set of writers. And I mentioned in the previous episode that I first thought RoboCop was kind of a parody movie. Looking at how much RoboCop content there is out there that is really crazy goofy while the original one isn't, it makes sense. I wonder if that's just how it got inserted into the pop culture. That all being said, there were a couple of plot ideas in RoboCop 2 that I thought were pretty interesting. Like the psychologist who's trying to suggest the next candidate for the next edition of the RoboCop project. In the movie, her motivations are all over the place, but what I thought would be pretty cool is, say you've got this clinical psychologist lady who's really concerned about her clients and she's incredibly frustrated by the fact that she can't just fix them, She has kind of this savior complex. And all of a sudden, she's brought onto the RoboCop project, she sees how easy it is to reprogram Murphy with a new set of directives. And now she's obsessed with doing this for all of her patients. Now you might even have a variation on Harley Quinn's character. In my opinion, that would be a much more believable motivation than she wants a promotion, but she doesn't care about the promotion, but she cares about the company, but she doesn't care about the company, but she cares about the patient, but she doesn't care about the patient. It's like the movie can't make up its mind. I would also want to see more of the police force's adaptation to having Robo on the force, as well as probably their struggles with people having different expectations out of the police nowadays. Rather than the police just being on strike again, you could have the people having a protest. I imagine living in futuristic Detroit, it would get kinda scary to see the police force starting to use more and more advanced technology to combat crime, because who knows where it stops, especially if you have a corrupt element in the force like you had in OCP. In these dystopian cyberpunk kind of movies and games and things like that, there's always kind of this level of, yeah, things went pretty 1984, and now street side surveillance is just considered normal. RoboCop plays with that sort of aesthetic. It kind of sits right on the cusp of when that might be happening with the crazy advancements in technology and cybernetic implants and whatnot. So I think there's a lot you could do with that. I think it'd be pretty interesting. But, you know, as I've said before, I'm no storyteller, I'm no writer. I wouldn't know how to weave any of this stuff together. Most of what I'm talking about probably reads like a bad fanfic. But I think it also speaks to the strength of the original movie, you know? Like, yes, it left me wanting more, but you don't need the sequel. Overall, I think what I want more than a RoboCop 2, as much as I love RoboCop, is just more stories that use this kind of premise. It's a really compelling plot. As Jess has pointed out, there hasn't been a movie that's done this in a really long time. Now, there is something that Jess is working on that I'm extremely excited about that I cannot say anything about, so I'll just leave it there. All I can say is stay tuned, and please subscribe to Kaleiworks Substack. And on that note, I think I'll cut things off there, guys. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. As always, please leave your comments in the comments section. Do you agree with me? Did you actually like RoboCop 2? Do you have any other takes on this topic? And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again.